Next up is Voices of Change with your hosts, Leslie Acosta and Aissia Richardson. Voices of Change is to connect, inform, and empower people to engage in social political change. Right here on Usala Radio. World news, local politics, saving money and investing, all this and more right here on Usala Radio. Your voice, your radio.
Kenny. Hello, everyone. You are listening to Voices of Change on Usala Radio with your host, Leslie Acosta and Aissia Richardson. We have a special guest today. Actually, we have two more guests coming, running a little late, but they will be here. We're going to have a discussion today of Miss Outlaw, Danielle Outlaw, the new police commissioner appointed by Kenny in the city of Philadelphia. So the topic and the title of this show is Hit or Miss. Aissia, hit or miss. We're gonna delve into this topic. But before we get into that, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Yeah. How was your New Year?
It was great. 2020 is going to be an amazing year.
Yeah. How about you, Prince?
It was absolutely wonderful. I say when you wake up with family in a new year, that's just something to be grateful for.
Absolutely.
I always tell myself it was 6 o'clock on New Year's Eve, wherever I am, I'm there to the next day.
Right.
Because I don't want to be the first casualty in an old year or first casualty in a new year.
Very good. So welcome. Prince will be with us today and having this discussion of this new appointment of Miss Outlaw. But before we get started and get into that topic, I'm just going to get my little spiel of what I think, my assessment of this new appointment of the police commissioner. Outlaw will take over a troubled department involved with controversies that include two commissioners who appear to embody the department's deeply ingrained culture that allows sexual and racial harassment to go unchecked, including social media scandals that make equitable policing nearly impossible in the city of Philadelphia of 1.5 million residents. Kenny considered more than 30 candidates for the top job, including 18 from within the department. However, none of them were qualified, according to Kenny. The mayor said he brought in an outsider because it was time for an outside, fresh look to lead the department. Some of the problems in the PPD: the previous police commissioner, Richard Ross, unexpectedly resigned in August under a cloud of allegations he failed to address sexual harassment, claims against two female officers, one of whom he reportedly had a love affair with. Right? And then after him, Kenny appoints or tapped into acting commissioner Christine Cutler. And what happened with Christine? She was also named in the allegations that she knew what was going on with Mr. Richard Ross. So Kenny, what he does, he then comes and he appoints Ms. Cutler to the position as acting commissioner. A photo surfaced about her of wearing a T-shirt that appeared to mock the brutal beating of Rodney King. So that became controversial. Cindy Bass then said, you know what, called for her resignation as a result of that. Trouble in paradise, Aissia and Prince. Commissioner Cutler recently advanced the ranks of three officers that were disciplined for misconduct. For example, one officer was caught lying about evidence on search warrants and stealing from corner stores during raids, including sexually assaulting two women during the bodega raids. How, is this unbelievable or what? The other female officer was arrested at a seafood restaurant in Florida following a domestic battery incident with her husband in Florida, and she was kept on the force. The third officer was among several officers whose names appeared in an outline database of police officers who made racist, sexist, violent, and offensive social media posts. And you know the scandal with that, right? Involved with that. So all three officers were recommended for promotions by the Federal Fraternal Order of Police and given a 14% raise.
Wow.
Taxpayers are paying for people that are misconduct. You have the FOP. God bless them. I know they have the good or bad. But listen, we have to really do our due diligence when we're promoting people here. All right? But we'll get into that discussion in a minute. Critics of the Philly PD assailed the department for failing to adequately discipline officers for alleged misconduct. There was in 2013, NBC 10 investigation found that 9 out of 10 Philadelphia officers were fired for alleged wrongdoing, finding their way back on the force through union arbitration and contracts, right? So let's get to the new appointment of Danielle Outlaw. Outlaw spent the last 2 years leading the Portland Police Department in Oregon, a force of about 1,000 police officers, kind of like a mid-sized city where only about 6% of the residents are black, right? The Portland Police Department has had its own problems in instituting civil rights reforms that were part of the U.S. Department of Justice settlement, where multiple people were killed by police officers under her leadership. So this is the criticism we have in regards to this new appointment of Outlaw. But she does come with some accolades, and we also have to outline the good stuff that she has done or that she tried to implement while she was in that position. Prior to her stint in Portland, Outlaw spent 20 years climbing the ranks of the Oakland Police Department, where she rose to Deputy Chief of Police. Her other assignments included patrol, criminal investigation, and internal affairs. Outlaw will lead the 6,500-member Philadelphia Police Department and will take over the force on February the 10th and will earn a salary of $285,000.
Wow.
The question is this going to be this kind? You got to put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah.
And if this is, we got to really outline this hit or miss title that we're discussing today if we make the correct appointment having this new police commissioner in the city of Philadelphia. We are just joined by Edwin Desamour. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
We're having this great discussion of the police commissioner. I'm going to open up the floor. Aissia Richardson, thank you for joining us. What say you about this?
Well, you know, so we have a lot of issues that you outlined, and some good, some bad. And so I think what's phenomenal and interesting is that right now we have the police commissioner, Danielle Outlaw, African-American woman, Blanche Carney, the Philadelphia Prison Commissioner, African-American woman, Vanessa Garrett Harley, Deputy Managing Director, Criminal Justice and Public Safety, African-American woman, Rochelle Bilal, Philadelphia Sheriff, African-American woman. So every major law enforcement entity in the city is now headed by African-American women.
Female, yes.
Female. You know, so you know, I really want to talk about that as well, because what is happening to the men in our education system, in our criminal justice system, that we are leaning on African-American women to be the enforcers, the law enforcement folks. Right. So I don't think, I'm not sure that it's an accident. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing either, because I think that we need to be able to give folks a chance to be able to rise to an occasion. In terms of Danielle Outlaw, you know, she came from Oakland, which is like, I think 46% African American now. It used to be much larger. It is a larger city on the West Coast. Lots of issues in Oakland. You know, lots of police violence in Oakland as well. So having that experience and being in internal affairs and being an officer in internal affairs where she was sort of the police of police, maybe will give her an opportunity to be able to look and see what's going on in our police department, because as we see with the district attorney, there's a lot of convictions that are being overturned now because of bad policing. Yeah. So let's see what the future brings, and you know, I mean, I'm open to the possibilities.
Well, let me just say this. And Prince, you made an interesting point, or you outlined an interesting point before you came in, to talk about some of the good and the bad the good and the ugly about this situation.
Well, let's look at that.
Let's look at that for a
Let's
minute.
let's look. How long has she been in the position of chief in Portland? 2 years?
About.
Right. And so Portland had about 53 homicides. Philadelphia had about 356 homicides in 1 year. And so what you're doing is you're missing, because the cloud of now she's an African American, now we're going to put an African American. You're missing some vital things. Number one, Mayor Kinney wasn't mayor; he was city councilman before he was mayor.
Correct.
So the same people that are in policing has been there, that he has supported the concept as a city council person, and now he feels as though that none of them are qualified. Now he is mayor. And he's only able to do that, notice, after he was reelected and ran unopposed. So the bigger picture is, what's his motive for this? And so in 2 years, he's going to leave and run for governor. The president of city council is going to take over as mayor.
No.
Hold on, wait a minute, Aissia. And so if he is unloading the house based on his ideology or based on his feelings, right, then he is putting us in a bad disposition, because once again, when you look at what it takes to evaluate somebody to do a job such as this humongous job in Philadelphia with the killings and the shootings, you need more experience at the position. And so what you've made it was a female, African-American female in the position more so than the best qualified candidate in position. And where we lose it in Philadelphia is that you play this wait and see. The wait and see game get people killed.
That's it.
When I'm vetted and I go for a job, they inspect me from foot to head. They make sure all of my credentials match. They make sure my years of experience match. And you don't even have a pay incentive. You start out at almost $300,000 at the top of the ladder. And case in point, look at the guy who runs the school district. You now have asbestos in 100 schools. He didn't know that when he came in here.
I think that they knew that when they came in.
No,
I think that they knew that because they were trying to close 23 schools 5-6 years ago. So they knew those schools had problems, and that's the reason why they were trying to close them.
No, but you closed those schools. You did close schools under
They
Michael
did.
Nutter. You closed schools,
But
and
they were trying to
African-American
close
males.
23 schools.
So here's
All those schools were on that list for the asbestos, by the way.
Here's the problem. The problem is that, like you just said, in Philadelphia, there's always a 10-year plan. So when you were going to school,
Actually, there's a 25-year plan.
right? So when
There's
you
a
were
25-year plan consistent.
when you were going to school, there was asbestos and there were mold, because these schools were built at a time where that was somewhat reliable. And so right now, these mistakes that are wait and see mistakes are costing our city, and they're costing the black men in this city, and the young black men and the young black Latinos in this city.
I agree.
Well,
I agree.
and
we have a flawed education system that's based on antiquated
I think we have a flawed,
pedagogy.
I think we have a flawed everything.
We're talking
No,
about the system itself.
Well, the system itself is based on the rules and regulations that are coming down that are impacting it, and it is a flawed system.
So
it
how
is a
long
flawed
do you
system.
continue to let this happen? So let's say we're at 6 killings in 4 days in the
Yeah.
city of Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Okay, I haven't seen the new police commissioner at all at any one of these situations.
Well, she's not coming on board until February 6th.
But let me-
So why would you expect her to be here?
But let me-
My issue is that there wasn't a community process. My issue is that there was no transparency and accountability.
the same issue.
Typically
That is
there
correct.
is. Typically there is
Okay.
when you're choosing a leader of that magnitude.
And here's the thing, I think we're lacking leadership. Leadership at the head, the person that's managing Philadelphia, elected by the people. And I don't want to be critical about this. I don't want to go there. Because that's not the point of this program today. It's about highlighting we have people in leadership positions, including the mayor, and all of these people leading the law enforcement, and yet nothing seems to be working correctly. What is going on?
Honestly, because city council would rather pass things that can't be implemented
Well, then
than
they
pass
need
things
to
that
go.
can be.
Then honestly, go ahead,
I
Edwin.
just want to jump in here. It's kind of like we explained. It's like they put up a cloud of smoke, right? And it's kind of like when someone wants to tell you a story, they say, you want the long version or you want the short version? The problem is with our people is that we always want the short version.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to hear the long version,
Yeah.
right? When it comes to dieting, right? Nobody wants to exercise, but give me that diet pill. Let me see if I can just get it over with.
Right.
So what I mean by that is there's a bigger picture. I understand what you were saying. Like, let's look at the bigger picture. You know, the short version, everybody wants to hear, oh, African-American or Latino. You know, oh, okay, I'm now satisfied. Right. You know, and it's kind of like, that's a dangerous... That's
Pandora box.
Yes, that to me, that is, you know, I remember years ago, I'm not going to name the school, but I put in a lot of work with the school years ago when I used to do a lot of advocating. And there was this one principal I was familiar with. You know, he was a Caucasian guy, and he was good. Mm-hmm. Believe it or not, he was good at what he does, and he understood the African American and Latino community. He knew the parents. He had a good track record, right? So he was up for grabs at a certain high school, you know, and I was like, man, I hope he gets this because he could turn this place around. Correct. And it was about the individual. It wasn't about race.
That's correct.
Right? And the community knew this person. Mm-hmm. The community actually knew this person. Grandparents, you know, parents and students. They loved him. Mm-hmm. But now, for the school that was up for grabs, looking for a principal, they decided to put some young guy in there, Latino guy, because he was, and the whole thing everybody kept saying is he's Latino. He's Puerto Rican. I said, okay, he's coming from a middle school. I'm not knocking that, and I'm not hating on the person. But right now, he does not have the experience to deal with a school that has issues already, a school that is rough. You know, someone who knows how to come in and know how to work the teachers, hold them accountable, and also work with the community.
Right.
They made a decision. They picked the young Latino guy.
Right.
Right?
But to satisfy what and whom?
To satisfy the short story.
Exactly.
Right.
The short story, you know, and it was and within 6 months that school fell apart.
Right.
Fell apart, and I remember coming into the school, this guy looked I really felt bad for him because it set him up for failure also.
Yes, exactly.
Instead of putting a young guy like that under the leadership of this guy, so he could learn and you could mold him so he could figure this out. But he really, to be honest with you, I don't even know if he's still in the district.
Well, and that's the problem what you got with the wait and see mentality.
Yeah.
Let's wait and see. Let's give them a chance. And like Aissia said, well, she doesn't come on in February. No, her pay starts now at $285,000. So when you step into something, and I start paying you, I expect the results. And so you're being comfortable with moving here and getting adapted and moving your family and friends and everybody who need to come on that $300,000 salary. You need to be in the field right now. And we don't know where she is in the field right now. And this is the problem with taxpayers. And this is the problem with the community. This is different than Cheltenham and then Ambler and then those other places. Yes, they have engagement. They are involved from day one until stuff happens. We're not engaged. We're left out. And I'm not blaming. This is not a city council situation. This is a mayor. This is an irresponsible mayor from the open drug avenues that he allowed to persist all the way to the point where he has 3 opportunities. He can appoint the school board person, the housing authority person, and the police person. He can do those 3 things. He supported 2 of those 3 things, which is the police and the school board. Mm-hmm. And yet we've been irresponsible in handling those situations from day one. It's reckless to go outside of a department that you set as city council and accepted this apartment as is for all that time, become mayor on a second term, and then go outside.
Well, we've been outside before. We went to Timony. We had Timony. He came from New York. We had Charles Ramsey. We've had outside folks be the police commissioner. It's actually rarer, I think, to have a police commissioner that's coming from the inside. Ross, I like Ross. I mean, I think Ross is
How do you like Ross? You didn't know about Ross until he resigned. Then you
Ross has been around and worked his way up through the ranks. He's been in Philadelphia for a while. People knew Richard Ross.
Can I ask you one question?
Knew Richard Ross.
Let me ask you one question.
Yeah.
When you get the printout on what those settlements were or what those potential lawsuits are, and they exceed $300,000, my question to you once again is, do you know Ross? Because those are $300,000 to $500,000 of taxpayer dollars that has to pay for his indiscretions. So regardless of the friendship Not saying you got a friend with him. Regardless of the seeing him, not saying that he wasn't around. I seen him at E9.
Yeah.
I am saying taxpayer. You didn't ask me if I want to take my dollars and pay into that $500,000 lawsuit.
Well, you know what? And so that's why I think that the issue that is missing is the transparency and accountability in choosing who the next commissioner should have been, and that is a failure of the mayor. The mayor did not create an opportunity for people like me who pay taxes to get involved. And our tax dollars go to
what is the process?
Normally there is a commission that's created. It's a commission that
like a task force,
like a task force that is created to be able to choose folks to come into.
Well, who knows about this task force? Because I didn't know about it.
Normally it's something that's appointed by city council people. It's appointed by the mayor.
Then that's a failure on city council not to put that out. Everything was done under the radar.
Yes, it was.
Everything was done in a sneaky fashion under the radar because
backroom.
Yeah, I mean, and when we talk about like how much money is paid, I don't particularly appreciate having to pay for the sexual harassment suits from Joel Williams either. I don't particularly want to pay for anybody's sexual harassment issues.
But you know what? You're right. And here's the thing, and we have to take a short break. But guess what? The Democratic Party enables this crap.
Yeah. Yeah.
They allowed Joe Williams to stay in office knowing that he was committing all of these indiscretions at the head of the sheriff department. Richard Rawls was appointed by the mayor. Mm-hmm. They allow this crap to continue to happen in our city. When does it stop?
When voters are educated.
Okay, well, we're going to talk about that when we come back. We have to take a short break. You're listening to Voices of Change on Usula Radio with your hosts, Aissia Richardson and Leslie Acosta. We'll be right back.
Didn't I?
I like it. I like it. I like it. I like it.
Coffee this way, make sure.
Good job.
Got me fletching. I'm on the other side. Wait. This guy right here.
Completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma. I have a mentor, and she convinced me to continue my education. No one receives a diploma alone. If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, go get it. You can do it.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
They call me Maxie, but I prefer tripod. I was your above-average four-legged homie, and then wham, bam, minivan. Some people pity me. Now that's lame. I still run, fetch, and swim. And the ladies love me. I'm the ultimate wingman. Just don't ask me to high five.
Welcome back. You are listening to Voices of Change on Usula Radio with your host, Leslie Acosta and Aissia Richardson. We have special guests here today, Edwin Desamour and Prince Jonikin. Thank you for being here today. We're having this great discussion. The title of the show is Hit or Miss with this new appointment of the police commissioner. Edwin Desamour, I want to bring you in here for a minute to so you can address for us. You're very familiar with this criminal justice reform piece. Both you and I, we know a lot about this, Aissia, and even Prince. What say you about this? I mean, I can give you a perfect example. When they mention your name
to be a part of the commission,
to be part of the commission,
I was attacked. Yeah.
He was attacked.
Wow.
All right, viciously.
Yeah.
Wow.
Viciously because he had a criminal conviction.
They sent reporters to my home.
They sent reporters to his home
to be part of the
criminal justice
the onslaught. Like it was. Tactical.
And he can explain more about it. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, talk about that.
Basically, I was appointed to be a part of a commission to build relationships between law enforcement and the community.
Okay.
So they built the task force together. This was under the Obama
That's correct.
And I was one of the ones that was picked on that. But then I also believe it wasn't really personal; it was more political.
Of course it is.
So basically, a lot of people took it as a personal, but they took my background, what I was arrested for. I was 16 years old when I was arrested, and when I was arrested, it was a highly publicized case involving a police officer's son. But 31 years ago. But they were, certain powers that be were opposing this commission. So they wanted a way out of it. They was already upset about it. So me understanding a few things that went down in the background, folks was like, hey, guess what? Somebody on the commission has been, arrested, charged with murder, served 8.5 years. So they went past everything I worked hard for the years,
Yeah.
things that I've done to serve the community and give back. So they actually hired a reporter that actually wasn't even from Philadelphia. It was from Bucks County, something like that.
Oh, we know
Next,
about Bucks County.
leaving cards at my door. My kids finally, there was a time where I didn't, I never let my kids know about my background until I felt as though they were ready, my younger ones. But then, a lot of stuff came out on TV, the news. Next year, they put me on blast. They started talking about my case. They started talking about so many different things, but it was pretty deep the way it was all set up. And I remember getting a call on a Saturday night saying, from the mayor at that time saying, we need you to come in. We need to talk. I'm like, it's Saturday. It's my son's birthday.
Yeah.
I come in and they was like, no, we need to talk. I was like, can you just tell me what's going on? They said, well, they came at us and it's going to get ugly. Have a reporter come to your house. And I was kind of like, I don't know yet. Obviously they were doing that while I was away from the home. Then, in so many words, the decision was already made, even with folks that were the ones that appointed me. I felt some type of way about a lot of this stuff on both sides, that they already told folks, listen, he resigned.
Yes.
So in so many words, they was trying to get, that was already put out there without me knowing that I resigned.
Wow.
And I was like, you know what? To keep this whole thing going, and I believed in the movement of building relationships between the community and police officers. Yeah. So I said, I'll take a step back, and if we could do that tomorrow and make it official. But next, 5 in the morning, there was already an article saying I resigned.
Yeah.
I was like, wow. So that was already,
right.
Folks were collaborating both sides, on this, and I was attacked a little bit more. And then after that, there was a couple apologies from folks on both ends behind closed doors.
Right.
But I understood, it was wrong at the end of the day, but I understood how the powers that be work.
How the politics work
Yeah.
in our city, Prince and Aissia, it's very ugly.
Yeah.
When things are not operating the way they should operate, it gets ugly. And we have a two-party system here, the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. I don't know which ones are worse. To be quite honest with you, the stuff that goes on here in the city of Philadelphia, you cannot make this stuff up. Cannot make this stuff up, and it continues to happen. Look at all the problems that we're having within the police department.
Yeah.
All of the racism, all of the sexual harassment, all of the internal things that are going on. The culture in the police department is completely out of control. Who controls that? Is this new appointment going to help relieve some of that situation? I don't think so.
Right. Because you have an FOP, you have representation. Poor people don't have representation. Poor people haven't unionized to the point where they have someone go to President of the United States and say, hey, this is my police department and we need more money, or we need more of this or more of that. And so to speak to Edward's situation is my companies have always hired. I grew up former resident of public housing. They did an article from PHA to PhD. Okay. And so it was my opportunity to say, hey, can I provide the best opportunity for guys coming home so they don't have to work in McDonald's at $7 an hour at 45 years of age and still not have enough money. And that will make the recidivism rate extremely high. If a guy frustrated, he can't pay his bills or take care. So some 20 years ago, we started at $15 an hour all the way up to $68 an hour by placing them into the union, teaching them valuable skills. And we only dealt with a group of guys who either had kids in public housing, used to live in public housing, have a parent or mom in public housing. And we've been pretty successful in those areas. And we didn't really go and destroy the budget. We did snow removal, landscaping, something we can teach them, build the foundation with them
skills.
on, and stuff like that. And so now we're into a whole new situation where we find that the poor in Philadelphia have been exploited to the extent where if we keep them poor, then we can run over them and run roughshod, and they won't ask questions like you're doing now. And so
That's just
it's
a
not a
good
matter.
point.
It's not a matter of both parties. It's a matter of when they both sit together, and they come up with a plan on how to keep people down, and then you get people who don't have a. Here's a solution. Like you just said, if there's 6,500 cops to govern 1.5 million people, actually you need 7,500 to be adequate. But you're not including the people that are suspended, the people that have desk duties, the people that are sick, the people that are emotionally stressed. So you may even have 6,000 cops. But you still have over 400 African American and Latino people. So if you only take 30,000, divide 6,000 into 30,000, and you should have somebody to watch a cop 24 hours a day. Every cop could be managed by your population of people, but no one talks about that. No one. But if you went into a detective room and he thought that those folks were the drug dealers in that neighborhood, he would have their pictures on the wall. He would assign somebody to monitor them day and night. So you have to come up with some solutions that allow you to take back control over this situation. You can't complain about it because you have more of a population.
Well,
That's Democratic.
Republican. I think part of this issue is based on decisions that are made that are looking at consolidation, saving money, that are looking at cross purposes. When the CUAs were created,
Saving what money?
excuse me.
I'm asking.
When the CUAs were created, the city consolidated our police departments into regions that were focused on the community umbrella agencies, that focused in on the Department of Human Services
That have
cases.
failed our kids, Aisha.
That have failed our kids.
The CUAs have failed
Exactly.
our kids.
So the CUA system was created
and that was
by
under the under the Nutter administration.
administration. And the police departments were consolidated in order to correspond to the CUA districts. Okay.
Well, who came up with that grand idea? And it didn't work.
But part of this issue is that there are folks that have institutional knowledge about how systems work and how they don't work, and sometimes decisions are not based on what's best for the people, but it's based on the almighty dollar. So this issue of funding our public schools adequately, this issue of decriminalizing so that we can take some of that money from decrim and do the justice reinvestment and reinvest it back into our schools. Excuse me, $60 million has been reinvested in our schools, but we need more because now we have all these schools that have the asbestos. So it's about making sure that the resources are put in the right places. I just looked at something. I just looked at something from the DHS, or no, it's actually Department of Agriculture.
Okay.
Department of Agriculture was spending $2.2 million for a clothing allowance for people who are on welfare. And they just ended the program because the actual money that was going to the recipients was $600,000. So the program costs 60% in administrative costs. So rather than waste that money on funding organizations to do clothing for people who were on welfare trying to get back into the workforce, the department said, you know what, we're just going to do allowances directly to the people who are on welfare and then just do the reimbursements.
So can I just throw this out there, and I'll let you chime in real quick, Prince. The Department of Human Services here in Philadelphia, they get $658 million. $658 million. Right. They created the CUAs under the auspice that they were going to give control to your community organizations, nonprofit organizations,
Right.
and they were going to relieve that responsibility because there was a lot of killings and lawsuits under the Department of Human Services. They exacerbated the problem by giving this to the CUAs. They left the same staff levels at DHS the same, earning the same money. And we had more people in foster care.
And excuse me, that was done by a Republican House of Representatives and Senate.
Hold on. It was done by the city of Philadelphia under the appointment of Michael Nutter, who allowed the previous commissioner, before Cynthia Figueroa, who was there, who convinced the Nutter administration that it was the right thing to do to have these CUAs implemented, a model that was implemented in Florida that failed in Florida and is failing here in Philadelphia. Come on now.
Edward, let me ask you a question. Do we know people that sit around all day? Do we know people that, if from public housing to reentry, that spend a whole day doing nothing? Am I correct?
Yeah, it's a. I'm sitting here like listening. It's a real touchy topic. I just want to, I hear about folks pouring money into this, and then folks appointing someone in new programs and in models, but we keep, in my opinion, we keep forgetting about mentality in our communities. I was given the keys to take back a rec center a few years ago. This rec center belonged to the drug dealers, literally. You couldn't walk in there, human feces all over the place, needles and everything else. But it took me and some men to go up in there and clean it up, and we had an unorthodox style of doing it.
Absolutely.
But men from the community taking it back. And at the same time, something I wanted to dive into also, a lot of times we don't highlight those good police officers.
Yeah,
we,
that's true.
We're always pointing out that, which we need to point out when something's wrong.
Yeah.
But we also need to point out when something's good. So we
Yeah.
had a lot of great police officers
Yeah.
who saw what I was doing. And
Supported
actually, not only just supporting it, coming on their time off.
Yeah.
Plain clothes, helping
Yeah.
me out,
Yeah.
working with me.
It's
And
true.
not just cleaning up, but sitting around, getting to know the community.
Because police officers live in the community too.
Yeah.
Come on.
And the other piece was me, first of all, these programs were coming down. They'll come down with a busload full of folks from another community talking about they're cleaning up. And I used to say, no, put them back on the bus. I said, if this community's not coming out to clean up themselves,
Right.
we're not cleaning up.
Yeah.
So I would knock on the door. I said, this is yours.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody's to be coming down here then taking group pictures. And then we'll say, this is the Democratic Party, this is the such department, this is whatever. We're not going to do all that.
No,
so
and
what
that's
we did was
important. That's
getting
critical,
folks
because that means
out.
that people take ownership of their own stuff.
And the other piece too that I want to say real quick is that I started a lunch program, which I got a lunch program now. Finally, after two and a half years, I finally got a lunch program going on. But even before that, we had something very effective. What I did was brought some ham, cheese, and whatever it was, some bread, and so. And then what I did was for the kids, with teaching them how to take care of themselves, I said, it's a quarter for the sandwich. You make your own sandwich.
Yeah.
Quarter for the chips. Quarter. And what happened was, on the table there, I had no register. So I explained to them, this is your money. So we keep feeding ourselves. So
Yeah, exactly.
and then people came and criticized me. Said, that's a shame. What if these kids don't have any a quarter? I said, well, guess what? There's a broom there. They could clean up and earn their keep.
Yeah, exactly.
So next they started to understand this was theirs. So at the end of the week, I started having $50, $60, $70, $80 on that table.
Yeah.
The kids didn't steal for themselves because they understood it was theirs. And then they would give me a list. Said, Mr.
Right.
Desamour,
This is what we want.
This is what we want. So what I'm trying to get at is that they started to take ownership, and you start to plan a mentality.
Exactly.
So now we have block captains in the area who now I don't have to say anything. If they see something suspicious in their community, they're going to speak up. They have a better relationship with the police. What I'm trying to get at is like changing the mentality, because a lot of times if we keep looking at and depending and I'm not talking about religion here, but it's kind of like we walk by faith. Okay, they appointed someone, so we're going to have faith that this person's going to do the right thing.
Right.
So, and my whole thing, okay, now we have the commissioner Outlaw, right? It's kind of like the next step is, what can we do to support her? Because we know the obstacles that are going to come her way.
And it's not just about supporting,
Yeah.
but it's also about holding accountable, too.
Yeah.
Because there was no accountability in her appointment, so there has to be accountability in her work.
So here's the exploitation. And so coming from looking at this from a housing situation, your assessment is that everyone who lives in public housing is either wants to be there or their situation is bad, and that's why they're there.
That's not true.
No,
that's absolutely not true.
I didn't say
People
that was,
in
I didn't
public
say that
housing
was,
work. I know.
didn't say
I
that
see
was
them every day.
I didn't say
Yeah.
that was your spin on it.
Yeah.
I'm saying that's what the economic spin on it that they keep selling. Because when I lived there, and I went to school, and I knew a lot of people who worked and who lived in public housing.
Yeah.
But as long as there's a collective agreement with 26 unions that work off the backs of those people being there, the same way with the prison system, as long as there's a population that is mandated to feed that prison system, prison system will operate.
That's correct.
And so the Philadelphia base is exploited because you got more university per square footage than any other city anywhere in the United States.
Well, I believe in pilots.
Let me finish.
Yeah, I believe in
because what happens is
payments in lieu of taxes. I believe that
as a training tool for criminal justice, as a training tool for their medical fields and stuff like that. Yeah. Certain things has to happen inside of places like Philadelphia, and that's why you have we have Temple as an emergency hospital because of that North Philly area right there. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Am I correct? And you don't have that emergency hospital in Albany.
Yes, there is. It's Einstein.
No, you don't. No, the trauma center in Philadelphia is the only.
Einstein is a trauma center.
No. I'm trying to tell you.
Temple's that designated place. You get shot, that's where they take you.
It's a designated place. They will take you from Borden County to Temple, is what I'm saying. And so what I'm saying is, and clearly, I'm not talking about the systems and the way of how they're designed. I'm talking about the economics behind the system, which leaves us in this quandary.
Depleted.
And in depleted, in this quandary, in this disposition. You fail to tell me how much money is spent in all of these areas. You didn't just see Jefferson take over almost every hospital and every university.
Jefferson just took over Philadelphia University.
Yeah. They didn't just take over Philadelphia. They took it over a year or two ago. But it went from Textile College to Philadelphia University to Jefferson, and then Jefferson took over about 3 other entities. Right? Am I correct?
Yeah. I mean, I know
Right.
because my uncle is a professor at he was a professor at Philadelphia University.
That's my area. I own a barbershop in that area and a few other businesses. And so what I'm trying to just get people to take a clear look at is that, like Edward said, he engaged and got his people involved, but we have been exploited in so many ways. From now, all of a sudden, 20 years later, they're building up American Street. And you can't tell me anybody who live on American Street that's working on any projects that's building up American Street. How many guys Edward age, or how many guys who look like Edward, how many people who lived here 20 years ago when it was a ghost town that's making $22 an hour doing any construction that's on a crane, that's on a backhoe, that's putting cement down, that's putting the landscaping in. And that's the fundamental problem I got. People try to explain to me and articulate to me about the process and the procedures, but you're not involving the people of Philadelphia who has suffered through this situation.
That's what I wanted to get to, like leading up to the playground and the rec center in that area that I worked with and currently working with. Now the regentrification is going on. Yeah. Right now that we found ourselves at a good place, now folks are like, hey, my taxes just went up or we're leaving. So now we worked our way to a good place, and now we worked our way to a good place as a community. But now
you have
folks
to protect it.
So now, but folks are leaving or moving out because other folks are moving in. But at the same time, like you said, now we got folks that I've been trying to get jobs for because you have a bunch of folks saying, I want to work.
Yeah.
Right? But now you have opportunity to hire people for the construction that's going on in their own community. Right. So that's where we're trying to find a loophole to get folks involved. Like, why should we be stuck there? I shouldn't be finding a loophole.
Yeah.
That should have been.
Constructions that are going on is a reflection, or they don't hire people that live in this community. And we talked about the development aspect of it, people coming in, getting these tax abatements, and they're not hiring black and brown people to do and give these jobs back. We have to take a short break.
Yeah, I just want to say real quick.
Yes.
Folks knew when my community meetings were. So they will come in saying, hey, we're going to be building. But once they get certain things passed, they never came back in and say, hey, we want to be able to hire folks from your
those where the
neighborhood.
agreements come in.
Well, that's
and no one
right,
really comes in and negotiate those agreements. But
Well-
we have to take a short break.
Yeah.
We'll be right back. You're listening to Voices of Change on USALA Radio with your host, Leslie Acosta and Aissia Richardson. We'll be right back.
What do you think you're doing, Kevin?
Was just gonna drive home.
There are several warning signs present that you shouldn't be driving.
Like hearing voices?
Like your text-to-emoji ratio?
Oh man, the selfies.
Selfie. Nailed it. We all have warning signs that let us know that we're probably not okay to drive. Mine is pretending to be your subconscious.
Craig, come on, man, let's put a ride home.
Sometimes the things we do or say can make others feel hurt, excluded, or isolated. Everything you say and do creates an impact.
How am I supposed to save the whole world? You can't think about saving the world. You have to think about saving one person.
Because of you, someone's entire life can change. You don't have to be a superhero to have a positive impact.
Friends?
Friends.
They're speaking just on those.
Thank you and welcome back. You're listening to Voices of Change on Outlaw Radio with your hosts Leslie Acosta and Aissia Richardson. And we're having this great conversations, different points of view, but in a respectful manner. We have Democrats and Republican representation here at the table, which is a good thing. I like to have these types of dialogues and conversations. It's a good thing because we all have different perspectives about how we see things, how we view things. And I think that is a good thing to have, but we all have a common denominator. And that
Correct.
common denominator is what is in the best interest of the people that are being represented. What is in the best interest of the people that live in the city of Philadelphia? So before we took the break, Edwin, you were discussing, this issue of your playground and how gentrification has come in. And you're in a good place now, and now you see things changing in the community that you're in. And I also mentioned the development coming in our community in North Philadelphia, where we have these community agreements that a lot of people don't know about these community agreements. How do you negotiate that when people and developers are coming in to ensure that people are protected, that people are involved in this process, and oftentimes it doesn't happen?
Yeah. I just want to put this out there also that, I'm like in between. I'm not Democrat or Republican.
That's okay.
Because I'm one of those. I believe too far to the left is dangerous. Too far to the right is dangerous. But I agree with so many things with Republican views. I agree with many things in Democratic views. But then it's just get caught up in the middle there. But it's very frustrating to see what's going on. We need more clarity. We need more discussion.
Absolutely.
We need to educate folks a little bit more. About how the process. When you talk about folks in housing and folks that are sitting around, one of the things that I do love is like when instead of making it a program at my rec center, we just turn it into a discussion without them knowing.
Yeah.
Almost like the barbershop discussion, right?
Yeah.
And I was surprised when I put up something like, a council person. Do you know what and I put it out there. What are their roles? They don't know.
No, yeah.
They don't know. So once we start putting it out there and once we
Right.
start saying this is a state rep, what are their roles?
Right.
And then they start questioning. That's what I love. Once you start putting out their roles, they're like, okay, well then, how is this and what's going on with that and why? And so you start to wake people up. And I think one of the things that we should be getting back to is like, how do we get into the psyche and the mentee of our folks? Because folks are still going by faith, right? They start feeling like, they go into the voting booth and they see a Spanish name and they click it. They click it because it's a Spanish name. But how do you know he's actually representing you?
So here's
if you see an African American name, how do you know
thing.
they're actually representing you?
I think that the grassroots organizing is an incredible opportunity to be able to do civic engagement. I started as an organizer and not supported by any particular council person, particular elected official. Started a RCO and just made sure that the organization that was, we got connected through information, and so the reason why, so I already had been running a nonprofit organization. It was already a community development organization, not getting what had gotten some support. We did, we came under fire for supporting something that was controversial, got those phone calls like you got that
exactly
harassment,
right. Yep.
and then, but maintained, and then found out about the RCO process, and then just started our own RCO. But the thing is that
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Your RCO, is it a nonprofit?
Yeah, it's a nonprofit.
So
yeah,
it's a 501(c)(3) or 501(c)(4)?
501(c)(3). Yeah, it's a 501(c)(3). Yeah. So, but the way that we got connected was that we didn't go through City Council. We went to the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission. We looked and saw through the planning that was happening for the 5 million people in our region, what was happening, and so we got connected through the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission and their environmental justice work, and made them pay attention to our communities, made them look at traffic patterns in our communities, made them look at things that were important to us. And not important to me, but important to us in terms of like pulling people together. I've always been involved as a convener because I'm a key, not a lock. My position is that when I have information, then I want to share it with everybody else, and you do with it what you feel is important to your community, and we all rise. So this issue of gentrification and the issue of the taxes, so there's things that can be done to be able to deal with stuff that's happening in the community. Part of the issue is that people don't open their mail. And when they don't open their mail from the city that says that their taxes are going up or going down, and they don't understand it, they don't, because they're afraid and they're in crisis. But I've argued with people who have gotten notices that said that their taxes are going down, and they're saying, no, I want my taxes to stay up because I want to be able to sell my house at a higher value. And I'm like, lady, do you not understand that your taxes doesn't have anything to do with the value of your house?
I just want to put this out there with folks being, in the trenches a lot.
Yeah.
Where now, like, say, for example...
we got 2 more minutes.
2 more minutes.
Yeah.
When it comes to, like, you talking about... You got some folks that live there that are embracing it, right? Saying, we want change. You know why? Because they've been fighting to clear up the crime that's been going on in their neighborhood. And for some reason, this is clearing up. But it shouldn't have to be...
No.
For new homes to pop up for better police presence.
At your cost.
And the reason why you get that is because you keep trying to tell them how you would like to have the community, and yet the investors aren't investing in you. They're taking your intellectual understanding and they're redoing your community.
And they're raping our community.
So raping our community. I'm not going to tell you how to fix my community up. I'm going to tell you how I can cut the
demographics are changing out in the counties. So now now people are being pushed outside, and you can't drive 200 miles and find a Republican administration in the counties. So that's the problem.
Well, listen,
and the solution.
We have to pick up this conversation hopefully maybe next week. And that conversation, we're going to talk about the Pennsylvania Justice Reinvestment. We didn't have time to discuss that today, but we will at the next segment. Part two of this episode. This was a great conversation talking about the new appointment of the police commissioner, Outlaw. Let's see how that goes, but we'll continue to follow her and ensure that she's held accountable in every step of the way. So thank you for being with us. Thank you, Aissia. Thank you, Prince. Thank you, Edwin Desamour. See you next week. You are listening to Voices of Change on Usula Radio with your host, Leslie Acosta and Aissia Richardson. Thank you.
So